Spot66. Hey, it's been a minute since we did a video. Life gets busy sometimes, and that's just reality. But anyways, first I wanted to actually thank people for going ahead and buying these touring frames. These have sold pretty well compared to some of the stuff that I've put out there, and so I'm really curious to see what people are thinking or their experiences are. And if you haven't posted up anywhere like on Facebook or Rotor Builds or something like that, show them. Really curious to see what you've built up with it. You can see that I've got my twins. Twin A has been taking a beating, and I've managed to break the canopy there. I've also managed to get this arm to go soft. This is the 3mm frame, and it's definitely, you know, with the all-up weight of this quad, 3mm is definitely pushing things on the lighter end. But for me personally, that's something I'm okay with because I really want to get the weight of these down to where I enjoy flying it. So that's kind of the theme of this video, is where can we save weight, and if we can save weight, how much do we save? So a couple spots. One is I wanted to look at the hardware, especially the stack hardware, and also the screw in the back. Oh, where'd it go? I pulled it off already. Anyways, with the frame, this stack hardware I think is 18mm or 16mm M2. And I wanted to see what that would go down to if we went ahead and used titanium instead of steel. And so I've got that comparison for you to start. So let's do that. Get this teared up here. All right, so first up we'll do the steel screws. So these are M2 18mm, and the weight will be a little bit lower if you're using 16mm. But I'll show you with the 18mm, it's about 2.2 grams. So it's not a ton, but it's something. And we'll compare that to the titanium screws. And I wanted to do this, these screws in particular, I wanted to get them in aluminum because I wanted to go for even more weight savings, and especially on the stack screws. The stack screws, I'm not planning on beating up the stack screws, and so I don't really need the strength of titanium. But I couldn't find them in aluminum, so ended up going with titanium. One of the things that's quirky on these is that it's got a really tiny, that takes a 0.5mm hex. So one of the things, buyer beware, if you are trying to do some of these titanium things, you probably want to check what size these different hexes are and make sure you have the appropriate wrench. Anyway, so we go from 2.2 grams down to, effectively 1 gram. That's like 0.96, but we'll call it 1 gram. So that's not bad. That's like a 1.2 gram savings there. The other one I looked at is the M5 or 5mm, the M2 5mm steel screws. So pretty commonly our motors are coming with steel screws. And this is another area where we can replace a whole bunch of them. So to me, it kind of made sense versus some other areas. Like for example, this screw on the front, that's a long screw and there's a lot of weight there. But what I'm finding is if you're ordering titanium, it's kind of a minimum order of 10. And so I don't want to order 10 of them and have 8 just sitting there, that I don't use, because that's just kind of a waste of money. So with the 3mm frame, I use 5mm screws, and obviously if you're using a 6 or 4mm frame, you're going to use 6mm screws. And the difference there, let's go ahead and let's see, we've got our steel screws first. So it's going to be 8 of them. And our steel screws come in at 1.8 grams. And then we'll drop that down to our titanium screws. Where are those hiding at? Oh, no. Okay, there we go. So here's the titanium screws. And so we went from, let's see, 1.8 grams, and we go down to 0.7 grams. So that's a savings of 1.1 grams on the motor screws. Now, like those stack screws, this is again that funny little size, that 0.5mm hex bolt. Then the last thing I wanted to do, don't know if you can see it here very well, but if you look at that Nano 90 camera, I've pulled the back off. And unfortunately, to pull the back off, you can't just use the screws that it comes with because there's this spacer here. And so what you actually need to do is get these really, really tiny screws. So these are M1.2, and it's a 2.5 millimeter screw that you want to be able to use so that you can just mount the board directly to the front of the case of the camera. And when we do that, we can drop some weight. And so this is going to be the backing with its screws. Got to tear it first, sorry. So let's see what that weighs. Got that teared. Put this screw back in. So this is the backing with the stock screws, and that weighs 0.8 grams. And then if you weigh out 4 of these little teeny tiny screws, which I'm not going to here, it comes in at 0.1 grams. So that is a difference of 0.8 grams versus 0.1 grams. So what does that mean in total? A little summary here. So for our 5 screws of the 16 millimeter M2s, steel is 2.2 versus tie is 1. And so we pick up a savings of 1.2 grams there. On our motor screws, we go from 8 of the 5 millimeter steel to 8 of the tie screws, and we go from 1.8 grams to 0.7 grams. So that's a savings of 1.1 grams there. Pulling off the camera back plate, we go from 0.8 grams down to 0.1 grams. And so then our total on these parts, steel with the back plate is 4.8 grams versus tie without the back plate is 1.8 grams. Total savings of 3 grams. And as I said, those cam screws are M1.2, 2.5 millimeters in length, which is kind of a funny little screw. Anyways, 3 grams. That's not nothing, but it's not a huge amount. But if you're looking at if you've done everything else, so for example, you've gone through and you've really shortened up your battery leads. You've made sure that your leads for mounting your capacitor are nice and short. You've done everything else. If you're out of other options, you can save 3 grams, maybe 3% of your all-up weight by those titanium hardware. Obviously, you can save even more by spending more money, but I didn't feel it's worthwhile, getting these shorter ones, because then, again, the minimum is like 10 screws that I'm finding, and so I don't want to have a bunch of expensive titanium screws that I'm not using. So, it depends on your personal price point and what your goals are with the weight, but that's a little bit of savings that you can do right there. All right, till next time, cheers.